The space station called Orion's Haven floated in the endless black of space like a shining island. It was not beautiful, not like the crystal cities of richer worlds, but it was alive. People of many races lived and worked there. Cargo ships came and left carrying goods to far-off colonies. The station never slept. Its halls always echoed with footsteps, voices, and the humming of machines. Among the many workers was a young human named Eli Carter. He was 26 years old, with steady hands and sharp eyes that noticed every broken wire and loose bolt. He worked as an engineer in the lower decks where old ships came for repairs and where no one important ever bothered to visit. Eli was not rich, and he was not famous, but he was skilled. When machines failed, he fixed them. When old engines coughed and sputtered, he made them breathe again. Eli had a quiet way about him. He did his job without boasting. Some people respected him, others ignored him, but he never complained. He liked to fix things. To him, every broken machine had a secret. You just had to listen carefully, and it would tell you how to heal it. One long shift, Eli was working on a stack of damaged cargo crates. A shipment had come in from a mining colony, but half of the crates were dented, their locks jammed. The supervisor had told Eli to sort through them and repair what he could. It was dirty work, but Eli didn't mind. He rolled up his sleeves, took out his tools, and got to it. As he pried open one crate, something unexpected slipped out. It was not a tool, nor a piece of metal, but a small book. It fell onto the floor with a soft thud. Eli blinked in surprise. Paper books were rare in space. Most people used data pads. He picked it up carefully. Its cover was worn, the corners frayed, and the pages inside were filled with neat curved writing. It was clearly alien, not human script. Eli frowned. How had this ended up in a cargo crate? He looked around, but no one was nearby. The other workers had already gone for their meal break. He held the little book in his hands, curiosity pulling at him. He should probably hand it to Lost and Found, but something about the book felt personal. He sat down on an empty crate, opened the cover, and began to read. At first, the writing was strange to him, but Eli had spent years working with aliens on the station. He knew enough of the language to understand most of it. His eyes scanned the words slowly, and soon he realized it was not just a notebook. It was a diary. The diary belonged to someone named Lyra. The entries were simple, written almost like a child's hand, though the thoughts inside were deep. She wrote about her days cleaning the station's lower halls. She wrote about people passing by without seeing her. She wrote about how lonely the endless days felt, how she wished for something more. Eli felt his chest tighten as he turned the pages. The words carried sadness, but also hope. She dreamed of things far beyond her reach. She wrote about wanting to see the stars, not just through the thick glass of the station, but out there, free among them. She wanted to step on new worlds, breathe different air, and feel like her life mattered. One line made Eli pause for a long time. It read, "I know no one will ever care about my dream. I'm only a cleaner, a forgotten girl. But still, I write it here, so that at least these pages will know me." Eli closed the book slowly. His hands felt heavy. He was not the kind of man who read other people's secrets, but he had already seen too much to turn away. Whoever this Lyra was, she carried a heart too big for the small life she had been given. Her dream was simple, to see the stars. But for her, it was impossible. The station's bell rang, marking the end of break time. Eli tucked the diary safely into his tool bag. He could not just leave it lying around. Someone might throw it away. He decided he would return it to its owner. But as he walked back to his work, he kept thinking about those words. A dream locked in a diary was still a dream. Maybe no one else cared, but Eli found himself caring. And that was the beginning of everything. The next day, Eli started asking questions. The name Lyra was not common. It belonged to a species called the Thaleri, a race once proud, but now broken by centuries of war and loss. Many Thaleri worked as laborers or cleaners on the station. Most people barely noticed them. Eli finally spotted her in the lower maintenance halls. She was young, maybe close to his age, though her people aged differently. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes a soft blue that reflected the station's dull lights. She wore the simple uniform of the cleaning crew, her hands rough from work. She moved quietly, sweeping the floor as others passed without even looking at her. Eli felt a strange pull in his chest. This was the girl whose words he had read, the one who thought no one would ever see her. He walked closer, the diary hidden under his jacket. "Excuse me," he said softly. Lyra looked up, startled. She rarely heard a human voice speak to her, directly. She blinked, unsure how to respond. "Yes?" Her voice was quiet, almost cautious. Eli held out the diary. "I think this belongs to you. I found it in a cargo crate yesterday." Her eyes widened. She froze, staring at the book as if it were a piece of her heart exposed to the air. She reached out slowly, trembling fingers taking it back. You read it?" Eli hesitated. He wanted to lie, but his nature would not allow it. "A little," he admitted. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but what I read, it was not foolish, it was beautiful." Lyra's face flushed, though on her pale skin it looked more like silver light spreading across her cheeks. She lowered her gaze, ashamed. "Others laugh when they hear of my dream. It is impossible. I should not have written it." "No," Eli said firmly. "You should have. A dream like that is worth having. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Lyra stared at him, surprised. No one had ever spoken to her like that. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you, human." "My name is Eli," he said gently. "And you're Lyra, right?" She nodded. She clutched the diary to her chest as if afraid it would vanish again. For the first time, a small smile touched her lips. It was fragile, like a spark waiting for breath to grow into flame. That night, Eli lay awake in his small cabin. The station hummed around him, metal walls pressing in from all sides. He could not stop thinking about Lyra's words. To see the stars, such a simple wish, yet for her it was locked away as impossible. But Eli was an engineer. His whole life was about fixing broken things, about making what was impossible work again. As he closed his eyes, an idea began to form in his mind. Perhaps a dream did not have to stay in a diary forever. Perhaps it could be built piece by piece with hands that cared. And so, without fully realizing it, Eli took his first step into a story that would change both their lives forever. Life on Orion's Haven always moved fast. Ships came and went. Traders shouted prices. Machines broke and got fixed again. But for Eli Carter, something had changed since he returned the diary to Lyra. He kept thinking about her, about the way she had clutched the diary as if it were her soul, about the way her eyes had carried both sadness and hope. He had seen hundreds of workers in the lower decks, but none of them stayed in his thoughts like Lyra did. Eli was not the kind of man who sought adventure or fame. He was just an engineer, one of many. Yet now, he felt pulled into someone else's quiet story. And for the first time in a long while, he felt that fixing machines might not be the only thing he could repair. The cleaning girl. The next few days, Eli found excuses to pass by the lower maintenance halls where the cleaning crews worked. He often saw Lyra sweeping floors, wiping walls, or collecting trash bins. She always moved quietly, head down, as if trying to be invisible. Other workers brushed past her without greeting. Some even dropped things carelessly, knowing she would pick them up. But Eli noticed everything. He noticed how carefully she worked, never leaving a corner dirty. He noticed how her shoulders bent under the weight of being ignored. And sometimes, he noticed her glance at the windows that showed the stars outside, her eyes longing for something far away. Finally, one evening, he stopped to talk again. "Lyra," he said gently. She looked up surprised. Few people ever said her name aloud. She clutched her cleaning cloth nervously. "Eli, what are you doing here? This is not your work section." "I had a repair nearby," he lied with a small smile. But really, I wanted to check on you. After the diary. Her face warmed, with embarrassment. She lowered her gaze. You shouldn't waste time on me, I am only a cleaner. My people, we do not matter much here. That's not true, Eli said firmly. Everyone matters, and your dream matters too. Lyra's eyes widened. She had not expected him to bring that up again. My dream? You mean the nonsense I wrote in those pages? Eli shook his head. It's not nonsense. Wanting to see the stars up close, to travel, to feel free. That's one of the most human dreams I've ever heard. And it's worth more than you think. For a moment, Lyra was silent. Then she let out a soft laugh, though it was tinged with sadness. If only wanting something was enough to make it real. Eli smiled a little, though inside his chest he felt the weight of her words. He wished he could tell her right then that maybe it was possible. But he said nothing. Instead, he simply stayed and talked with her. Stories. Shared day by day, Eli and Lyra began to speak more often. At first she was shy, always cautious, as if afraid of saying something foolish. But Eli's gentle patience slowly drew her out. She told him about her people, the Thaleri. Long ago they had traveled the stars proudly. But after their wars, their fleets were broken, their worlds ruined. Many survivors had no choice but to work as laborers for stronger races. On Orion's Haven, most Thaleri were cleaners or cargo haulers. Few ever rose higher. I was born here, Lyra said one evening as they sat in the quiet corner of the maintenance bay. I've never even stepped on a real planet. I've only seen pictures in books or vids. Sometimes I wonder if the sky on a world feels different than the one through glass. Eli listened carefully. He wanted to tell her yes, it felt different. He had been to Earth as a child, had seen oceans and mountains, but he stayed quiet because he could see in her eyes how painful it was to imagine something she might never touch. Instead, he asked, "What made you start writing a diary?" Lyra looked at her hands, thoughtful. "Because if I did not write my thoughts somewhere, they would disappear. No one listens to a cleaner. No one asks what she dreams about. So the diary became my listener, the only place I could be me." Eli felt his throat tighten. He realized then how lonely she must have been all these years. He thought of all the times he had walked past cleaning crews without noticing their faces. He felt ashamed. "You're wrong about one thing," he said, quietly. "Someone is listening now." Lyra looked at him with surprise. For a long moment their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, something fragile but powerful. A hidden spark. After that, their bond grew little by little. Eli sometimes brought her small things, a packet of real tea, a data pad filled with star maps, even a broken music player he had repaired just for her. Lyra accepted each gift shyly, as if she wasn't used to kindness. In return, she began to laugh more when she was around him. Her laugh was soft, almost musical, and Eli found himself wanting to hear it again and again. One night they stood together near a wide viewing window. The stars burned bright outside, endless and cold. Lyra pressed her hands to the glass, her reflection shimmering over the galaxies beyond. "Do you ever think," she whispered, "that maybe the stars call to some people louder than others, as if they are saying, 'Come find me'?" Eli looked at her profile, at the longing etched into her features. He wanted so badly to tell her that maybe, just maybe, he could help her answer that call. But he bit his tongue. Not yet. The idea in his heart was still only a seed. He had to be sure before he promised her anything. Rumors on the station, meanwhile, life on Orion's Haven grew tense. Word spread that the station's authorities planned to sell off old, unused ships for scrap. Among them was a battered shuttle that had been sitting forgotten in the hangar for years. Eli knew that shuttle well. He had worked on it once, trying to keep its engines from collapsing. It was a wreck, but he had always believed it could fly, again if someone cared enough to fix it. Now, As he heard the rumors, an idea stirred inside him like a flame. What if he could restore that ship? What if he could make it fly, not for himself but for Lyra? The thought excited him, but also scared him. It would take time, credits, and hard work. And if the station sold the ship before he was ready, the EO chance would vanish. Still, Eli could not shake the image of Lyra standing at the glass whispering about the stars calling. He decided then, he would try. Even if it seemed impossible, he would try. A glimpse of trust one evening, after a long day of repairs, Eli found Lyra sitting alone in the quiet corner where they often met. She held her diary in her lap, tracing the worn edges of its cover. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. "You again? Don't you ever get tired of talking to me?" "Never," Eli said, sitting down beside her. For a while they sat in silence, listening to the hum of the station's walls. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Eli, why do you care? About me, I mean. No one else does. Why you?" Eli thought about it. He could have said many things, that he admired her strength, that her words had touched him, that he saw something in her no one else did. But in the end, he chose the simplest truth. "Because you deserve to be seen," he said softly. "And I see you." Lyra's breath caught. She turned her face away quickly, hiding the sudden shine in her eyes. She had never heard words like that before, not once in all her life. That night, when she returned to her small quarters, she opened her diary again. For the first time in years, she wrote something not just about loneliness, but about hope. "Today, someone spoke to me as if I mattered. Maybe I do." Seeds of a plan as. Eli walked back to his cabin. He carried a heavy decision inside him. He knew now what he had to do. He would not just listen to Lyra's dream. He would fight to make it real. Machines could be fixed. Engines could be rebuilt. And maybe, just maybe, dreams could be given wings. He pictured the old shuttle in the hangar, waiting to be scrapped. He pictured Lyra's face when she first stepped inside, when she saw the stars not from behind glass, but from the bridge of a ship. Eli smiled to himself, though his hands itched with the work ahead. It would not be easy, but nothing worth doing ever was. The seed had been planted, and in the quiet corners of Orion's haven, something new had begun to grow. Not just hope, but the first fragile thread of trust between a human engineer and a forgotten alien girl. Neither of them knew yet how far that thread would lead. But the stars had begun to whisper, and Eli was ready to listen. The days on Orion's haven passed in their usual rhythm. Cargo ships came and went, merchants shouted prices in the markets, and workers hurried through the endless metal corridors. To most, it was just another cycle of work and survival. But, for Eli Carter, something new burned inside him. A secret plan, a hidden fire. He could not forget Lyra's words, nor the longing in her eyes when she gazed at the stars. He could not forget the sadness in her diary, the lines that spoke of being unseen, unheard, forgotten. More than anything, he could not forget her dream, to see the stars, not behind glass, but from the bridge of a real ship. Eli had decided he would make that dream real. The forgotten shuttle. The old shuttle rested in the scrap hangar, covered in dust and shadows. Its frame was scarred with age, panels rusted, wiring exposed like broken veins. Most workers called it useless. The station authorities planned to strip it for parts within a few cycles. But Eli saw something different. He walked around the shuttle, slowly, his hand brushing the cold metal. The engines were silent but not dead. The structure was bent, but not shattered. To others, it was a pile of junk. To him, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. "This old bird can fly again," he whispered. To himself, it would take time, tools, and credits. The station would never fund it, so he would have to use his own savings and whatever scraps he could salvage. He would need to work in secret, too. If anyone found out, they might stop him, or worse, sell the shuttle before he finished. But Eli had never backed down from a challenge. He rolled up his sleeves and began. Silent work. Every evening after his shift ended, Eli returned to the hangar. He worked in silence, tools in hand, sweat on his brow. He started with the engines. Their cores were cracked, their fuel lines clogged with old residue. Piece by piece he pulled them apart, cleaning, repairing, replacing where he could. Sometimes he used spare parts from the station's junk piles. Sometimes he paid for scraps with his own credits. It was exhausting. His hands grew blistered, his clothes soaked with grease. But each time the engines sparked faintly under his touch, he felt hope grow stronger. He moved on to the navigation. Systems next. The shuttle's control board was shattered, its circuits fried. Eli scavenged old wires and outdated chips, carefully weaving them into place. Slowly, lights flickered to life on the dashboard, like a ship waking from a long sleep. Chug. Hull was harder. The outer plates were rusted, some bent beyond repair. Eli patched them with spare alloy sheets, hammering them into shape. The shuttle would never look beautiful on the outside. But beauty wasn't the goal. Function was. And as days turned, into weeks the ship slowly began to breathe again. Growing bond. While Eli worked in secret, his friendship with Lyra also deepened. He still met her in the quiet corners of the maintenance halls. Sometimes they shared food, other times just words. Lyra had never spoken so freely before, but with Eli, she found herself telling stories she had never told anyone. She spoke of her childhood, of playing in the narrow halls of the station, pretending the air vents were tunnels on strange planets. She spoke of how other children laughed at her when she said she wanted to fly ships one day. They said cleaners don't fly, Lyra said bitterly one night. They said our people only scrub, floors and carry crates, nothing more. Eli shook his head. They're wrong. You're more than what others decide for you. Lyra smiled faintly, but it was a smile mixed with disbelief. Easy for you to say. You are human. You can become an engineer, a pilot, anything. For me, the sky is a closed door. Eli's heart tightened. He wanted so badly to tell her that maybe the door wasn't closed forever. But he held back. The surprise wasn't ready yet. Instead, he just said, "Sometimes doors can be opened, Lyra, even locked ones." She gave him a curious look, but let the matter rest. Sleepless nights, Ellie's days grew longer. He worked his normal shifts repairing station systems, then spent his nights hidden in the hangar, breathing life back into the shuttle. Sleep became a rare luxury. His hands were raw, his back ached, but his determination only grew. He kept a small data pad where he recorded progress. Each note was like a promise. Engines cleaned, core still weak, but stable. Navigation lights flickered, possible short in wiring. Fuel lines replaced with patched tubing. Must test soon. Sometimes doubt crept in. What if the shuttle failed? What if he never finished in time, and the station authorities scrapped it? What if Lyra laughed at the idea instead of believing? But each time he thought of giving up, he remembered her diary. He remembered the line, "I know no one will ever care about my dream." And he whispered to himself, "Someone does." Small signs. Lyra noticed changes in Eli, though he tried to hide them. His eyes often looked tired. His hands bore fresh cuts, and sometimes grease stained his clothes even when he wasn't working his shift. "You've been busy," she remarked one evening. Eli chuckled softly. "You could say that." "On what?" she asked curiously. He hesitated, then said, "A project. Something important." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "You are strange, Eli. Most people here only work for credits, for survival. You work for something else." Eli smiled faintly. "Maybe I just like fixing things others give up on." Lyra thought about that. She hugged her diary closer to her chest and whispered, "I wish someone could fix me." Eli's chest tightened. He wanted to tell her she didn't need fixing, that she was already more than she realized. But instead he simply said, "You're not broken, Lyra. You just haven't had the chance to show the world who you really are." Her eyes shimmered in the dim light. For a long moment, she said nothing. But her silence spoke louder than words. One night, while Eli was tightening bolts on the shuttle's outer frame, he heard footsteps echoing in the hangar. His heart jumped. If the wrong person found him here, his entire plan could collapse. He quickly shut off the lights and ducked behind a stack of crates. 2 station workers entered, talking loudly. "They're clearing this hangar soon," one said. "All the old ships will be stripped for metal. The bosses say it's a waste of space keeping them." "About time," the other replied. "This junk's been here forever." They walked past the shuttle, barely giving it a glance. To them it was just scrap. But Eli's fist clenched. His time was running out. If he didn't finish soon, everything would be lost. As soon as the workers left, he stepped out, his jaw set with determination. "Not scrap," he whispered to the shuttle. "You're going to fly again, and she's going to see the stars because of you." Quiet dreams. Meanwhile, Lyra found herself changing. She still worked as a cleaner, still walked the same halls, but her heart felt lighter when Eli was near. His words lingered in her mind. Sometimes, late at night, she opened her diary and wrote things she had never dared write before. "I think Eli sees me, not as a cleaner, not as nothing, but as someone. It feels strange, but also warm. He says broken things can be fixed. Does that mean dreams too?" She never asked him directly. Part of her feared disappointment. But deep inside, a spark had been lit. Progress and promise weeks passed. The shuttle's engines began to hum again, faint but alive. The controls lit up with steady signals. The fuel system held pressure. The ship was not perfect, not polished, but it was ready for testing. Eli stood in the cockpit one night, wiping sweat from his brow. He looked out at the hangar doors, imagining them opening, imagining the stars beyond. He thought of Lyra's face, the way her eyes would widen when she saw what he had built for her. He smiled, tired but hopeful. Soon, he promised himself. Soon, she will know. That night, as he walked back through the quiet halls, he met Lyra again. She was cleaning near the windows, her eyes drifting often to the stars outside. "Eli," she said softly, "do you ever feel like the universe is too big for people like us?" Eli shook his head. "No, I think the universe is waiting for people like us. We just have to reach for it." She gave him a puzzled look, but his words made her heart beat faster. She didn't know why. Eli knew the time was coming. The shuttle was almost ready. The dream that had once lived only in the fragile pages of a diary was about to break free into the stars, and though Lyra didn't know it yet, her life was about to change forever. The old shuttle stood quietly in the forgotten hangar bay, its hull still rough and scarred from years of neglect. Dust clung to its edges, and faded paint barely hinted at the name it once carried. To most eyes, it was just another piece of junk waiting to be stripped for parts. But to Eli, it was the most important project of his life. For months he had worked late nights, his hands stained with oil, his mind driven by one simple promise he had made silently to himself: to give Lyra her dream. Eli tightened the last bolt, wiped his hands on his work cloth, and stepped back. The shuttle was not beautiful, at least not in the traditional sense. It still looked old and tired, its exterior worn down by time. But inside, its systems were alive again. Engines hummed softly, lights flickered on, and the navigation panel glowed with steady confidence. It was ready. He leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling with both exhaustion and excitement. "It's done," he whispered to himself. "She's really going to see the stars." Meanwhile, Lyra was finishing her shift in the lower maintenance halls. Her back ached from hours of scrubbing, and her hands were raw from harsh cleaning agents. To most, her presence was invisible. Workers passed by without greeting, and sometimes even bumped into her without apology. She had grown used to it, though deep inside a quiet ache always remained. But lately something was different. Her talks with Eli had planted something new in her heart. Hope. She didn't know why he cared to listen to her, or why his words carried so much warmth, but she found herself looking forward to every small conversation they shared. She never told him, but when he wasn't around, the station seemed colder, emptier. That night, as she put away her cleaning tools, Eli appeared at the corner of the corridor. He looked more tired than usual, yet his eyes shone with energy. "Lyra," he called gently. She looked up, surprised. "Eli, what are you doing here? Don't you usually work in the repair bays this late?" "I was," he said with a small smile. "But tonight I want to show you something. Come with me." Lyra hesitated. She wasn't used to being invited anywhere. "Show me something?" she asked carefully. "Yeah," Eli nodded. "Just trust me. You'll see." She followed him through quiet hallways, her steps uncertain. They passed storage rooms, closed hangar doors, and dim corridors that few people visited anymore. Finally, Eli stopped in front of an old hangar bay. With a heavy push, he opened the sliding door, and the sight inside left Lyra speechless. There, standing tall under dim lights, was the shuttle. It wasn't polished or shining, but it was alive. The lights glowed faintly, and soft vibrations came from its engines. Lyra's eyes widened. Is that a working ship?" Eli grinned, his tired face lighting up. "It wasn't, but now it is." She stared at him in shock. You fixed this? All by yourself?" "Piece by piece," Eli said proudly. "It wasn't easy, but I knew it could fly again, and I knew someone who deserved to be on that first flight." Her heart pounded. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. "Eli, why? Why go through all this trouble?" He looked at her, kindly. "Because of your diary, Lyra. Because of your dream. You wanted to see the stars, not from behind glass on a station, but truly see them. I couldn't stop thinking about that. So I decided to make it real." For a moment, Lyra felt as if the air had been pulled from her lungs. No one had ever taken her dreams seriously before. No one had ever gone this far for her. Tears welled in her eyes, and she shook her head in disbelief. I don't know what to say. This is impossible. This shouldn't be real." Eli stepped closer, his voice soft. "It is real, and it's yours. Come on, Lyra, let's fly." Her hands trembled as she followed him into the shuttle. The door hissed closed behind them, and the inside greeted her with warm lights and a humming console. It was simple but functional, every panel cleaned and repaired. Eli took the pilot's seat, gesturing for her to sit beside him. She sank into the co-pilot's chair, her eyes wide as she touched the smooth controls. She had only ever seen ships from the outside or from the far-off docks where she cleaned. Sitting inside one felt unreal, like stepping into the pages of her own diary. Eli flipped a series of switches. "Engines online," he said calmly, though his heart was racing too. The shuttle rumbled, the sound echoing through the hangar. Lights brightened, and the navigation screen came alive with star maps. Lyra clutched her seat. "We're really going to fly?" Eli glanced at her with a reassuring smile. "Yes, we're going to fly." With steady hands, he guided the shuttle forward. The bay doors opened slowly, revealing the endless black of space beyond. Stars twinkled like countless diamonds scattered across infinity. The shuttle glided forward, leaving the hangar and entering the void. The moment they cleared the station, the stars stretched endlessly around them. Lyra gasped, her hands flying, to her mouth. Oh, stars," she whispered. Her eyes filled with tears, but her smile shone brighter than anything she had ever known. Eli watched her quietly. That look on her face, the awe, the wonder, the joy, made every long night of work worth it. For the first time in her life, Lyra wasn't just a poor worker on a crowded station. She was part of the stars themselves. Her reflection shone in the glass, as distant galaxies glittered before her. She pressed her hand against the window, tears streaming freely now. "I used to dream of this," she whispered. "I thought it was only fantasy, I thought it would never be mine. Eli's voice was gentle. Now it is. She turned toward him, her heart overflowing with emotions she couldn't name. Thank you, Eli. I don't know how I can ever repay you. You don't have to, he said simply. Seeing you smile like this, that's enough. They spent hours drifting through space, the shuttle steady and quiet. Eli showed her how the navigation worked, pointing out constellations and nearby planets. Lyra listened with wide-eyed excitement, asking questions eagerly, her earlier shyness fading into pure curiosity. At one point, Eli even let her place her hands on the controls. She hesitated, afraid she might break something, but with his guidance, she gently steered the shuttle. The stars shifted slowly outside, and she let out a laugh, a sound so pure and free that Eli felt his chest tighten with pride. You're doing it, he said. You're flying. Lyra's voice shook with laughter and disbelief. I'm flying. I'm really flying. Her dream, once locked away in secret words written on fragile paper, now lived in her hands. Hours later, they returned to the station. The shuttle landed smoothly and the engines powered down with a gentle hum. The hangar was quiet once more, but something inside Lyra had changed forever. As they stepped out, she turned to Eli, her eyes shining with tears and starlight. This night, I'll never forget it. You've given me more than I ever thought I could have. Eli smiled, tired but happy. It's only the beginning, Lyra. You deserve more than just one dream. This is only the first step. She clutched her diary close to her chest, her heart burning with hope. For the first time, she believed him. The stars were no longer impossible, they were hers to reach. The hangar was silent after the shuttle's engines powered down, but in Lyra's heart 1,000 songs were singing. She stood there, staring at the vessel, her hands trembling as if she still felt the controls beneath her fingers. She had flown among the stars. She had touched her dream. For a long moment she couldn't speak. Eli watched her quietly, leaning against the shuttle with tired but proud eyes. He didn't push her to talk. He simply let her breathe, let her feel the truth of what had happened. Finally, she turned toward him, her voice soft but filled with wonder. I don't feel like the same person anymore. Eli chuckled. You aren't. The stars change people, when they finally see them up close. You'll never forget this feeling. Lyra clutched her diary close to her chest. The same diary she once hid, afraid someone would mock her dreams. Now those pages were no longer just words. They were memories, brought to life. The next day, whispers began spreading across the station. A poor alien cleaner had flown a shuttle into the stars. Some laughed, thinking it was a silly rumor. Others frowned, questioning how such a thing could happen. But among the workers in the lower halls, the story lit a spark. For the first time, they saw someone like them doing something extraordinary. When Lyra arrived for her shift, the usual silence around her felt different. Some of her fellow workers glanced her way, curious. One of them, an older alien woman with tired eyes, approached her. Is it true? The woman asked softly. Did you really fly out there? Lyra hesitated. Part of her wanted to keep it secret, to hold the memory close like a jewel. But then she remembered Eli's words. Everyone deserved to dream. So she lifted her chin and nodded. Yes, I saw the stars, and they're more beautiful than I ever imagined. The older woman's lips trembled with a small smile. Then maybe it's not foolish to hope after all. Later, in the repair bay, Eli found himself confronted by a group of mechanics. They had heard the same rumors and wanted answers. You risked station property? One of them demanded. Eli stood tall, meeting their stares. I repaired a shuttle that was already marked as scrap. I brought it back to life. And I gave someone who deserved it a chance to see what most of us take for granted. Some of them shook their heads, muttering about rules and risks. But a few remained quiet, their eyes thoughtful. You're saying, one younger mechanic asked slowly, that the girl who cleans the lower halls actually flew it? Eli smiled faintly. She didn't just ride in it. She piloted it. Even if just for a few minutes, she was in control. The younger mechanic's expression shifted from disbelief to admiration. Maybe she's got more courage than most of us. That evening, Eli and Lyra met again in the quiet hangar. The shuttle stood ready, waiting for them like a faithful friend. Lyra ran her fingers over its rough hull, her expression soft. "I still can't believe you did all this for me," she whispered. Eli shrugged lightly. "I didn't do it just for you. I did it because I believe dreams shouldn't stay locked away, and because I knew you needed to see that you're worth more than the world tells you." Her eyes filled with tears. But this time, they weren't. Only from sadness or gratitude, they were from strength. She had changed. She could feel it in her bones. "Eli," she said firmly, "I don't want this to be the end. I don't want my dream to stop here. I want to learn. I want to become more than just a passenger. I want to fly, really fly one day." Eli's heart swelled with pride. "Then we'll make it happen. I'll teach you everything I know." The days that followed became a new chapter in Lyra's life. After her shifts, she met Eli in the hangar, where he patiently guided her through the basics of navigation, mechanics, and piloting. At first, her hands were clumsy and her mistakes frustrated her, but Eli encouraged her at every step, reminding her that skill came with time. Slowly, she improved. She learned how to read star maps, how to adjust thrusters, and how to repair simple malfunctions. Each lesson built her confidence. Each small success planted another seed of hope. Sometimes, when she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the girl staring back. No longer did she see only a tired cleaner with nothing but broken dreams. She saw someone capable, someone ready to step beyond the limits others had set for her. One evening, after a long session of training, Lyra sat in the pilot's seat of the shuttle. The hangar was quiet, the air filled with the faint hum of systems running. She closed her eyes, imagining herself soaring across the galaxy. Eli sat beside her, watching. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. She opened her eyes slowly, her gaze distant but determined. "I'm thinking, maybe one day I could own a ship. Not just this shuttle, but something bigger. Something that could take me across the stars to places I've never even heard of." Eli smiled. "That's a good dream, and now you know it's not impossible." Her hand rested on the controls, steady now, no longer trembling. "Yes," she said softly. "It's not impossible anymore." As weeks passed, more people on the station began noticing the change in Lyra. She walked with her head higher, her steps lighter. She spoke with confidence, no longer hiding her voice. The once invisible cleaner had become someone others looked at with curiosity, even respect. Rumors turned into inspiration. Some workers began sharing their own dreams aloud, no longer afraid of being mocked. A quiet shift was happening. One girl's impossible wish had reminded many that hope was not foolish. One night, Eli and Lyra took the shuttle out again. This time she was in the pilot's seat from the start. Eli sat beside her, calm and supportive, but he didn't touch the controls. "You're ready," he said. "Trust yourself." Lyra took a deep breath, her hands firm on the controls. The shuttle lifted smoothly from the hangar, engines humming with power. The doors opened, and once again the stars stretched before her. But this time was different. This time she wasn't just watching them, she was commanding her path toward them. The shuttle glided forward, steady and sure. Lyra guided it through the void, her heart soaring higher than the ship itself. She laughed freely, the sound carrying across the cabin like music. Eli looked at her with quiet pride. "See? You were meant for this." Lyra's eyes sparkled with determination. And this is only the beginning. Hours later, when they returned to the station, Lyra wrote in her diary once again. But her words were different now. They were no longer secret wishes hidden in sadness. They were plans, goals, and visions of a brighter future. She wrote about her first flight, her lessons with Eli, her newfound courage, and she wrote about the dream she now believed in fully, To one day own her own ship and travel the galaxy, free and unbound. When she closed the diary, she smiled. It was no longer a book of impossible dreams. It was the record of a journey she had already begun. Eli walked her back through the station corridors. People glanced at them curiously, but Lyra didn't shrink under their gazes anymore. She walked, proudly, her diary tucked under her arm like a symbol of her strength. At the docking bay, she paused and turned to Eli. "You know, before you found my diary, I thought my life would always be the same. Just cleaning, just surviving, always dreaming, but never touching those dreams. But now," she placed her hand over her heart, "now I know that even someone like me can reach the stars, and it's because of you." Eli shook his head gently. "No, Lyra, it's because of you. I only opened the door. You're the one who walked through it." Her eyes softened, full of gratitude. "Maybe, but I'll never forget who gave me the chance." That night, as she lay in her small room, she gazed out of the narrow window at the endless black of space. But this time, she didn't feel trapped behind it. She felt connected, as though the stars were calling her name. For the first time in her life, Lyra wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Tomorrow was hers to shape. The poor alien girl who once hid her dreams in a worn diary had taken her first step into the galaxy. And with Eli by her side, she knew this was only the beginning of a new story. Her story, written not in secret words, but in the starlight itself.